Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us today. I'm sure you are doing well and in the best of your health. So thank you so much to all the attendees who have registered for this wonderful, electric mobility webinar. I'm sure you're going to have a wonderful 1 hour from now. We have with us today Mr. Vijay Thota, who is Managing Director of Ficosa India Private Limited, as one of the speakers. Thank you, Vijay. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
We also have Mr. Lalit Sharma, who is Head of ET and Innovation, Yamaha Motor Solutions India Private Limited, as one of the speakers for this webinar. Thank you, Lalit, for accepting our request. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
And the moderator for this session, Mr. Avinav Gupta from the corporate innovation team of T-Hub. Thanks, Avinav. Over to you.
Thank you, Shankar, and welcome everyone to this wonderful session and webinar called Plan B. And this is a very special Plan B for us. The reason is Plan B session is always the agenda of Plan B sessions are always centered about future, right? People who have on the panel are also very futuristic in nature, and I'll make sure that in next 60 minutes I'll extract as much as possible from both of them, so that every one of you will take notes and also make sure you connect them on LinkedIn and increase their fan bases. And both of them have a vast experience in this EV space. And the space, even though there is a lot of talk from parliament to the gully, wherever we live, that EVs are coming in, and it has been so rich now that it is now showing in my tax declaration also that I'm paying interest for my EV vehicle or not. So it is so completely entangled with my life. So we'll know more about it, but it's still a black box. With both of you, I want to explore this space more and also unravel few of the interesting things about this. So before going ahead, I want you to quickly introduce yourself. I'll start with Vijay. Vijay, can you just a 1 minute or 2 line or just a 1 minute about you, and also a little bit about the space, right? Your first thoughts about EV as a space, and then we'll go to Lalit.
Okay. So my name is Vijay Thota. I'm currently working as a managing director for Ficosa India Private Limited. Started this about 3 years back as a 100% entity of Ficosa International, which is a Spanish corporation, majority stake owned by Panasonic Japan. Prior to this, I've been in automotive business for about 20 years, starting from 2002 until 2018. I was in Detroit, Michigan. Worked through many different products, few companies, but my entire life has been in automotive, in passenger cars. I hold an engineering degree from India, and then a master's and an MBA from University of Michigan. Relocated to India in 2018 and took up this challenge. So at Ficosa, it is a like many auto companies, it's an older company, started in 1948, and even now a lot of our products are traditional products. What I mean by traditional products are electromechanical products. But as the industry is transforming, we have heavily invested and work on 3 different areas. One is ADAS, which is a active driver assist systems or safety systems. Then the second one is connectivity. And then lastly, the topic for today is the electromobility. So as far as electromobility, I think we'll get into the overview a little later, but at Ficosa, what we do with electromobility is primarily the battery management systems and also the chargers and also the cutoff boxes. So we do all the electronics except the actual batteries itself. The parent company, Panasonic, has heavily invested in battery manufacturing about 6 years back. The company has put in about $5 billion from starting from beginning from 2015 for the next few years. So even now, if you are looking for a passenger cars, automotive grade batteries, Panasonic is still the #1 battery manufacturers. There are a few other Chinese companies that have come in play, but they continue to lead the market in automotive segment. So that's basically where I come from and who I am.
Thank you, Vijay. Now over to you, Lalit. A quick introduction from you and your thoughts about EV space, and then we'll deep dive.
Yeah. So hi, my name is Lalit, and I take care of emerging technologies and innovation in Yamaha Motor Solution. So this is IT subsidiary of Yamaha Motors, and we are closely associated to some of the EV space which Yamaha is driving. So maybe it is autonomous vehicle, slow mobility vehicles, or we are working on some of the concepts for precision agriculture based on the EV mobility space. So we have some of the assignments here in Yamaha wherein we are very closely working with them, majorly on the software part of it, being it robotic automation, AI, ML, and deep learning, or uh, uh, moving on to like putting some smart algorithms for the autonomous vehicles navigation path, detecting the sensors informations from the EVs and controlling it, and then also providing some of the concepts for AGVs, which is autonomous guided vehicles inside the plant. So we are developing a complete portal in which we can actually navigate the multiple vehicles which are available inside a plant and how they can autonomously work on the activities which is there, how they can charge up their systems, how can they have the efficiency to the maximum extent. Yeah. So
Thank you.
yeah, sorry.
No, go on, Lalit. Please complete.
Okay. So basically, the idea is like how to make the current EVs more efficient in their processing and workouts. So this is our whole objective right now.
Wonderful. I think we'll try to know more about them. So coming to you, Vijay. Vijay, you said Detroit, so you have a very interesting perspective because you were, if I can say, after the Ford has set up there, it has become capital of automotive industry. Do you think still Detroit will be capital once the EVs are out? Because I read an article in BBC saying that after Tesla has been launched, Silicon Valley might also become a capital of EV, or might be some other place, but not Detroit. Do you concur to this statement, or you have some other thoughts about it?
So I think see there are there are for the compared to a traditional automobile. If you look at the new ones or the smart cars or the end goal of autonomous cars, there are two systems. In a traditional automobile, it's primarily a mechanical electrical system, whereas in a smart automobile with the EVs or the connected cars, you still have the electrical mechanical system plus the software, multiple ECUs, multiple functions that are all smart functions with a bunch of software. So Detroit still commands a very respectable foothold, manufacturing foothold, from starting from the people who have been there in the industries for generations, who understand the art of building a car, who are very efficient in doing the things that go in manufacturing of the car. The software part has to be brought from outside. I mean, even Detroit companies now, if you look at, for example, if you look at the big three of Detroit, Ford, General Motors, and then FCA. Now FCA is called Stellantis. The Fiat Chrysler has a new name called Stellantis. So all these companies have also transformed into some level of software companies, because the differentiation is coming from the enhancements in software and the features and the experience, and not the horsepower or the braking or the pickup. I mean, they are still there, but for normal customer now, it's about how connected the car is. How can I transform my digital experience from home to office to a car? So the software enhancements and the connected car is the one that is creating the difference. So to answer your question, it would be very difficult to dethrone Detroit. As long as you're manufacturing cars, you're still somehow linked to Detroit. But the flavor of the automobile making has changed for sure. It's not the same as before. It has changed. The customer taste and desire, or the preference for an automobile has changed. So that's where you see more and more, the Silicon Valley companies now all playing a big role. Just to drive that point down, the the older electronic companies, like for example Sony's, Panasonic, and Denso's, now if you look at their sales, some of the biggest sales come from the automobile industry or the automotive business. Significant amount of Sony products are put in as a display panels in the cars. Also, if you look at the chip manufacturers, Broadcom, NXP, and these guys, a lot of their business comes from automotive, which wasn't there about even 10 years back. The business did not exist, or it was very small. Now it has become a significant chunk. So it's interesting times. I mean, things are coming together. Software and the hardware and the mechanicals are coming together, and ultimately the customer is to benefit with more safer and more connected car. So interesting times right now.
I take away that you are still with Detroit. Your heart speaks for Detroit, but I think it is logically right, because there has been a legacy and a lot of research which has been already there in that particular market. So now I'll go to Lalit, and if I find out if there is another perspective or not for the same question. Lalit, I quote Benjamin Netanyahu when he came to his India's visit. He said, now Israel and Tel Aviv will become new automotive capital, exactly like Vijay said, because now the future is 80%, even in automotive industry, 80% is software and 20% is hardware. That's what his quote is. Do you agree with it? That Tel Aviv and other people like Bangalore or Hyderabad can become next hubs for EV, or still it is with traditional like Pune or Detroit? What do you say? You
Okay.
contradict?
So I totally agree to Vijay. And I think now the elements which are there required for the EV, only the engine part, which is right now the crux of the complete EVs, it is being changed. Okay. And earlier, if you have to have like 5,000 parts which needs to be there for assembling a engine, now it is reduced to 300 or something. So in which significantly there would be an impact in those terms. But when we say EV is not only now the mechanical and electrical, majorly it is more or less a software oriented piece. So everything is controlled by the softwares, even the sensors and all the. So if you want to improve on the efficiency now, maybe you don't have to go to the mechanical or electrical aspects, but majorly it would be driven through software. Many companies are pushing very hard to build a smart algorithms, how to give the maximum thrust at the initial level, and then finally at the later, like how you want to manage it. So gradually it is increasing from like semi-automatic or when we have a hybrid model in which we have to switch from different from EV to mechanical engines or something. But right now, when we have the complete EVs, we have all the features which are available that needs to be guided from the software. So lot of software code needs to be inputted there. Okay, once the infrastructure is in place, like you have all the components available, the advancement or that needs to be done at the software level. So wherein you have the different versions which are coming up, so you have to be up and going on the software side of it. I think the software has to play a major role in this.
Got it. I'll go to next part of our discussion. Vijay, I'll come to you. And before I ask the question, I just want to highlight to audience that we have people from four-wheeler and two-wheeler industry both, so you can ask different questions, right? So Vijay, am I right, Vijay? You work with four-wheelers more than two-wheelers, right?
Yes.
Right. And of course Yamaha. So two-wheeler, BAP of two-wheelers. So he is with us. Okay. So my next question is, Vijay, to you. Can you just explain me what are the important modules or parts of EV ecosystem? Might be chargers or might be even in the automobile. Are there any important parts which which we have to understand? Can you just on a broad level basis, what are the basic parts which are there where innovation can happen, or which builds up the EV ecosystem complete?
So, I mean, see, when we talk about ecosystem, there are, let's say, we can broadly classify them into two areas, especially for electric vehicles or EV scope. The one is the automobile itself, may it be a car or a bike. Okay, so we have to focus on the mobility unit, and then the second part is the infrastructure unit. And the infrastructure unit is actually a more challenging part for the wider adoption of electric vehicles. You see, for example, like if you look at coming back to the mobility unit, about 10 years back, 1 kilowatt hour of battery used to cost about, and I'm just quoting some average number, it used to cost about $1,000 to buy the battery capacity of 1 kilowatt hour. And today it has come down to even below $100. So the advancements and the investments in the battery fabrication and the manufacturing has brought the cost down. So what it means is a similar electric car that would have costed at least 2 or 3 times compared to an internal combustion car 10 years back, now is only about 20 or 30% more expensive. Okay, so I mean the cost has become more approachable or more desirable. And coming back to the specific question you asked, an electric vehicle is much more simpler implementation than an internal combustion vehicle. So you don't have to have, like I think what Lalit has mentioned, you don't have to have a very a complex internal combustion engine with a lot of moving parts. And what is wrong with a lot of moving parts is more parts means more chance of failure. So the reliability and all those things are also lesser compared to the electric motors and stuff. And if you look at an electric vehicle, there are still different ways how they are being implemented, but you can get away from transmission, the exhaust systems, the exhaust management systems. There are many things you can get rid of once you go to an electric vehicle. It adds some complexity, adding complexity in terms of safely managing a battery systems. But I think over the years, there have been many developments that have been made in the last 10 years or so to manage high capacity batteries in the electric vehicles. So a lot of advances have been made on the vehicle side. Coming to the infrastructure side, I think this is where the challenge is. See, in India, I think we are about there is about more than 70,000 petrol bunks. So if you have to provide an equal support in the electric vehicle system, you have to come up with at least 2 or 3 times more than 70,000. The reason being is filling up petrol or diesel is fast. You basically fill it and you forget about it. Whereas in order to charge a vehicle, it takes time. And also within the charging stations, there are different levels of charging stations. I mean, they have 4 different levels. Level 1 and level 2 are more like a house and office purpose. Level 3 and level 4 are more of a commercial high intensity charging or high power charging, which requires more money to invest and also all these things. So this infrastructure to be able to charge quickly will be a significant factor in how well the electric vehicle ecosystem is developed and adopted. Okay, so to summarize the thing, we have to look at two areas. One, the unit of mobility itself, whether it's car or a bike, and then the infrastructure. Now we have the car and the bike, but the problem really today of EV is we cannot take it out of the city. I mean, everybody has this range anxiety. What happens if I go out of town? Where do I, recharge it? I mean, for charging, it's going to take so much time. So I think in order to get away from that, they both have to come together, and we have to have a good balance. And that's where we'll see a wider adoption and people getting more comfortable with electric vehicles happening.
Understood. Thank you, Vijay, for explaining the whole ecosystem in the basic part. One thing you spoke about is challenges, and I'll try to focus on that part a later part of the webinar. But one interesting thing you spoke about is also about the customer experience. I'll ask the question is to Lalit. Lalit, tell me how these EVs will completely change the customer experience, right? And also, and because we spoke about digital experiences before, and I heard that when the braking system of Tesla was not working well, so they they sent a patch on the car so that they just have to download and install that package so that the braking systems are better. Right? That is a kind of an experience we're looking at when it comes to upgrading the vehicle. But what Vijay focused upon is on the infrastructure. The experience is not so good. So how will the experience for a customer in EV segment will be very different from the current ecosystem of mobility?
Okay, so right now we have challenges when we talk about the EV space, and whenever we talk about any transformation, there are certain challenges. And since the maturity of automotive vehicles at certain high level, so we are expecting more than that. Okay, so as we know, like government sometime back implemented CNG, and it was a failure because it used to take so much of time, and it was so bulky. So the experience was not so good. So merely it was finally the people who wants to save on the cost, they were they were the ones who were opting for the CNG stations like in India. And government have to again restructure everything to get this availability. And when we talk about, it was only available in Delhi, and if you want to go outside Delhi, it was not possible. So when we talk about the EV space, I think it should be much better than what we have today. So the areas in which the experience excelled, we will see more adoption to it. And the areas where we find such challenges for the infrastructure and all, there would be a low adoption. So for instance, like when we talk about the EVs, so e-rickshaw in India, they were adopted because it was economical, and the people, it was fast. So the number of trips, they were better. So in case if we want to go to the next leap, and if we want to have the implementations of the EVs over here, then we have to build the basic infrastructure which can support, and also we can give the best services to them. Okay, so in this case, if we so what I think is the 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 transformation can happen where the infrastructure is available. So maybe when I see for the manufacturing segment, so AGVs within the plant, to have certain goods transferred from one location to the another location, we can have accessibility there. So in which the manufacturing unit, they can actually create the infrastructure for themselves. Another one is like I see for the two-wheeler segment, it can be a adaptability over there, because there are some companies which are working on swap and swap of battery infrastructure, which can give a add-on advantage. So you don't have to spend so much of time for basically charging the vehicle for such a long time. So you can just use your current standard petrol pumps, and then you just go over there, take your battery out, make a payment through Paytm or something, e-payment, and then you just swap it off and then you just move on. But in case of the four-wheeler, I think we have to build the infrastructure and then only we can. And to have a better experience, another one can be like we have to shift from B2C to B2B. So mobility as a service could be another way around to work on it. So you have a concentrated infrastructure availability in the city to a certain areas, and then from those concentrated mobility services or the subscription based model, you can just avail those facilities.
Understood, Lalit. I think well put. Now I'll come to a uh, very fundamental question, taking a cue from you, Lalit, because you said about B2B, and even this question is to Vijay. Vijay, the last state in the parliamentary session, I think Gatkari said that by 3 years, everyone in Delhi, the bureaucrats and the political system will convert to EVs. So do you think these are the kinds of steps which have to be taken to promote EV? Or in your opinion, are there any other ways to push EV?
Yeah, see, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, see, the governmental initiative through regulation or subsidies or the promotion, I think, is the only way to transform this technology, meaning converting from internal combustion to electric vehicles. See, what happens is, if you look at the history, for about the last 100 years, the petrol or the diesel engines have become very good. I mean, they work fine. You just need to fill up petrol and diesel and regular maintenance, and they work. You don't even have to think much, and they're very robust. They are quite economical, let's say. So they have their own advantages. Whereas an EV, like what we have discussed before, they're expensive today. Yes, they are green and they produce lesser emissions. But from a pinpoint customer, I think there are very few people who would buy a car because it's green. I think many people, or a car or a bike, many people, they buy the car or a bike because of the needs, the daily needs, the necessity of transportation. So what I mean to say is that today's technology is fine for many of the end customers. In order to push EVs, it has to only happen through the governmental regulation. So having all the bureaucrats and the politicians in a limited area like NCR would be a first step. Because that would give a model of how to set up the stations, where to set up the station, what kind of stations do we need for recharging, is it even practical? So we can do a lot of understanding and case studies based on that, and that can be adopted in a much wider area, much wider geography of India. So in order to expand that point, if you look at the main countries today that are really aggressive in EV, they're all happening through the regulation itself. So, for example, California has recently, about I think 4 or 5 months back, they came out and said that by 2035 they cannot sell an internal combustion engine vehicle in California, in the state of California. So what it means is they have about 14, 15 years now, and everything has to convert to EV. That means the infrastructure has to be put in place. They are giving more incentives. I think you mentioned earlier, in their taxes, in their this thing. So these are the kind of things that are required. And many European countries are also doing. Different countries have different things, but many European countries are doing. And then of all the countries, China is also going in a very aggressive manner for electrification of their vehicles. I think from a country standpoint, there are significant advantages, and one of them being the dependence or the lesser dependence on the foreign oil. So a country like India, where 80% of our oil is imported, I think we spend close to 8 to 10 lakh crores every year to import these oils from many different countries. I think this, even a 10%, 20% change in electrification or conversion from ICE engines to electrification has a big impact on our foreign reserves and stuff. So yes.
So government has to take the first bite. So there's no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. My next question is exactly, I think you started answering on that, but this question is to both of you. I think Lalit, you can go first and then Vijay. Because Vijay has touched upon something called how EV ecosystem will impact economy at large, because we were speaking about oil and all. So I was reading this article in National Geographic, which says that Bolivia will become next Saudi or Venezuela because it has the largest deposits of lithium. So do you just think that now, of course, data is a new oil, but lithium might be the next oil, immediate oil. So Lalit, do you think that economy will be shifting and the players internationally will be changing, but this, if I can say, dependence on forex will still stay because we have to import a lot of these batteries and all? What is your view on it?
So I think, to be honest, it will take time. So the oil is not going to go very soon, because right now we are just talking about the transportation, but the oil is requirement in many other industries and so. And also, when we talk about the EV segment, it is a portion of it. It is not everything, and it is not going to change in a day or two, and it is going to be a gradual. So it is very difficult to say right now who would be the leading in this, and it depends also on the explorations, like where will impact more. So I'm not sure about it.
Okay, Vijay, your views on it?
So I think there is a little apples to oranges comparison what you made. See, if there is a lithium resources or maybe gold or silver resources or whatever that is used for electric vehicle manufacturing, but those are one-time procurement. So lithium-ion batteries, I think, if you look at the latest thing, they last about 6, 7, 8 years now, based on the current technology. So, so it's a one-time. Maybe Bolivia can make it, or Venezuela can have the lithium resources, but you buy it for one time. It's unlike the fuel. Fuel you continuously buy and burn and buy and burn. So it's an ongoing thing, and it's a big trade commodity worldwide. So I think those are two different things. And then there is definitely a larger economic balancing that would happen as we go into more of electrification. And I think it's primarily because of the oil, how today's world is so dependent on fossil fuel, and how some of the countries have an overabundance of oil compared to the rest. So I think that balance will soften up. I mean, meaning it won't happen overnight. I think what Lalit is saying is what we also discussed before. Internal combustion engines work very well. So you cannot just say, okay, today I will stop all the petrol and diesel engines and tomorrow I'll go to electrification. It's not going to happen. So it's a gradual process. It probably takes a generation or two. I think in our lifetimes we will still see the internal combustion engines. So I think it's not going to go away, but things will change, level off. The dependence on the foreign oils will reduce, and that will have a greater impact on the economies of many of these oil-producing nations. So I think it has a bigger socio-economical impact.
So I can take this that at least, if not completely, but normalization will happen on dependencies.
Sure.
Right.
Definitely.
Okay. Okay. So my next question is about the future, Lalit. So just tell me, like, last 2 or 3 months, when you might be subscribing to a lot of newsletters, and you are a primary or like a contact to a lot of different interesting items happening. So what are 2 or 3 most interesting things which you read about EV space, which excited you the most? You should tell me about the future. Okay. So that's the crux of the question.
So recently I got to know, like, Toyota invested in one of the company which is Volvin. city. So they are trying to build an ecosystem for the EV and the autonomous e-mobility. So in this, what they are trying to do is they are trying to partner the different aspects, like how to make the EV successful or the autonomous mobility as a success. So in this, they have partnered with the top engineers. They have a company which is looking onto the new mergers and acquisitions, which are there in this particular space. Okay, so when you are talk about the autonomous vehicle, so they are looking for the autonomous vehicle algorithms or the sensors, or the company who is already working on it. So they have recently done acquisition of Lyft in terms of it. So Lyft would be a partner into this program, and then they have another subsidiaries which will take care of the operations, and then they have also included the fintech among it. So now you have the complete ecosystem which is sustainable to run the new future city. So you have those all concepts which they are looking forward from different sources, and they just want to bring in all these concepts and try to implement to a singular space where which can be treated as a model for the future. So this is one of the case which interests me, and then there is lot of things which are happening in the uh, slow mobility space. So like it is a last mile delivery or something. So it is very easy to capture, in which you can have a flow of transportation. Like if you want to deliver something from A location to B location, and it is a fixed and it is under a controlled environment, so it is very easy to be like move on to a EV space and the autonomous mobility space. So as we know, like in future nobody is going to drive a car, or maybe he won't be owning a car, or some of the transportation mechanism. So everyone is thinking in the same direction, so it starts from the slow ones, and then it gradually grows to the next level.
Wonderful. I think you touched upon one of the interesting segments. We were only speaking about four-wheelers and two-wheelers, but there is something called, I can call it as micro two-wheeler or something like that, which is connected to the last mile. I think it's fantastic.
Yes. So there is like a Segway. It is, even though it is a failed product, but many people they are looking towards it. This could be the last mile delivery, or maybe it can be consumed by B2B. For example, you can think about Zomato or Swiggy. They are using the last mile connectivity not as a bike, as a e-scooter, or a Segway kind of, in which it can travel up to 2 or 3 kilometer distance. So something like it, and it is
And
easily chargeable, and it can be on the subscription. So even though Swiggy or Zomato, they are working on a different segment, they can partner with those startups which can altogether do a complete ecosystem for the last mile delivery.
wonderful. So Vijay, over to you. Similar question. Last 3 months, what is the most interesting article you read about future of EV, or anything which excited you the
So
most?
I think one thing I wanted to just highlight here in this webinar is um, the companies, car companies, and the people who have invested in electric vehicle technologies are thinking in a much more aggressive fashion than what many of us know. See, for example, like one of the thing is, like by 2024, so which is in about 3 years time, there'll be more than, by 2024 there'll be more than 20 different vehicles in Indian market which are completely electric. Many companies are planning on it, different segments, different price range, different ranges. I think you've already heard about Tesla, but many European car companies are planning to do it. The Indian ones, including the Maruti, is planning to do it. So you will see much more variation, or much more offerings in this segment to purchase and own an electric car. And then I think the other important area, if we talk about the future trends, so there is an acronym called CASE that stands for Connected, Autonomous, Shared, Electrified Vehicles. So these four are not directly connected, but they go hand in hand. Electrification becomes like the central bare bone for many of the other things. For example, autonomous vehicle almost needs an electrified vehicle. It's not because it is definitely yes, but for an autonomous vehicle to function and operate, an electrified vehicle is much easier than an internal combustion vehicle. So they go hand in hand. For the shared services, it's the same thing. Shared services meaning an autonomous vehicle which doesn't have a driver, but can be used as a shared service. You book it on an app, or you call something, or the car shows up in front of your house. You get in the car, it drops you off somewhere, and then goes off to another assignment. So I mean, these things are quite quite practical things that are happening. These are not sci-fi movies anymore. I mean, these are happening. And I think the other interesting thing I've seen is that there is a company called EasyJet. So all these good news from electric two-wheelers and four-wheelers are also transitioning into airplanes. So there is a battery-powered small airplane. It's not a big one, but I think a two-seater or three-seater is a company called EasyJet that they have come out with a battery-powered flight, which I think is about 300 or 400 mile range. So a lot of advancements happening in many different areas. It's a very exciting field to be right now.
Superb. Now my next question is little. You have to prioritize, both of you, right? The question is, Lalit, you're the first one to answer this. So let us make it difficult for Vijay to shortlist few more. So Lalit, if you have to do three things, it would be policy level, it would be innovation level. What are those three things which you will focus on to make sure that EV adoption will become at least 3x to 4x than this speed? Or should I say, like, put more slot to it on the adoption or something like that? What do you think it has to happen so that the adoption, the rate at which it is growing, it has to become 2x or 3x? What are top three things you might do?
Okay, so if uh, I think the aggressive timelines could be one of things that we can implement. So if the governments take a decision to roll out to a certain segment or to somewhere, like within 5 years, we have to do this. Okay, so these concepts, like I was just discussing with someone in US, they have created a city in which you can bring on your own innovative ideas. You can implement it. So this in particular, this city, you can implement anything. If you have some idea and you want the infrastructure, the city provides you that infrastructure, and you can build and test it. And then you can think of the horizontal experimentations or horizontal deployment. So I think the technology is available, and the only issue is, like, what is the pain area which is going to eliminate, or which is going to give a customer satisfaction. So in those terms, I think the slow mobility is the area which I think where the adoption could be the maximum. Like e-rickshaw in India, it could be something else which could convert it into the maximum adoption.
Understood. I think the technology advancement, government intervention, and focus on slow mobility. Those are the three things.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Over to you, Vijay. What are the three things you want to do?
So I think, let's take a very basic pragmatic approach. I think there are two hurdles, big ones. I mean, there might be more than two, but the way I see it, the two big ones is, one is the cost. For a customer like you and me to buy an electric vehicle, right? It's more expensive than a regular vehicle. And the second thing is what I've said before is this range anxiety. So if I want to get in a car and go to Bangalore, a 5 lakh car is sufficient for me to go to Bangalore, but even it's a 30 lakh electric vehicle is not sufficient, because you have to worry about where you're going to recharge and all these things. So I think if these two questions are answered, I think you will have a much more faster adoption. The cost, I think it can be attacked in a very efficient manner. I mean, currently there is significant amount of taxes that in the form of GST that are put against the vehicles. So any car you buy, there's the 28% of taxes that go in the showroom price only. So if you can put the electric vehicles in a different GST bracket and bring the tax down by to maybe 5% or something, you have a significant reduction in the cost of the electric vehicles. So that would make the EV cars more accessible to people. So that's number one. The second thing is infrastructure, and I think infrastructure is something that that the government ought to do it in a much more aggressive way. I mean, one of the thought processes since the traditional fuel stations are managed in the way they are allotted and stuff, I think we should give away the responsibility to also put the electric charging station in the traditional station. So what it means is, if somebody is getting a license for the petrol bunk, he should also have installed like 6 or 7 charging stations in the same petrol bunk. So that way, you are giving a carrot, but at the same time, you're asking the business person to have invested in the future technology. So I think you have to come up with a win-win situation to build up the infrastructure, like a public-private this thing, and then reducing the cost is more direct. I mean, yes, there will be loss in the taxation incomes, but I think it will go a long run in the dependence of the foreign trade and exchange and foreign oil and all those. So those two things will speed it up like 3, 4, 5 times in a very efficient way.
Understood. Wonderful. So in the next segment, we have 12 minutes more. What I'll try to do is I'll reserve the last 5 minutes for our rapid fire questions, which will be very interesting. And it is a surprise question, so every one of you will look forward for those answers from both of you. Okay, now I'll go to a segment where we'll take questions from all the attendees and try to answer them. One question is from Amit Chakravarti. I think the question is very relevant. We spoke about the existing conditions, Vijay and Lalit, but we have to also focus on the end of the value cycle, right, or the life cycle of an EV. What happens to the dead batteries? How do we dispose them? Are they not harmful enough to environment? So what are there technologies which are already here to recycle them, or what should be the ideal way? Your comments on it. So Lalit, you can go first, and then Vijay.
So I'm really sorry, I don't know much about that. And I think right now we are in the advancement of adoption, but really we haven't, or maybe Vijay can answer that, but we have really thought of like how we are going to dispose it. So as I know, like in the manufacturing industry, there are some regulations to how to dispose the e-waste, and under those guidelines only we'll see like how to dispose the battery information and all.
Yeah. So see, I'm not a subject matter expert in the battery recycling and stuff, but it's no different from what you do with your lead acid batteries, the batteries that you have in the vehicles today. Yes, they are bigger. Yes, they are more heavier, but they're about the same as what you do with how do you recycle the existing batteries in your vehicles. Okay.
Got it. Sure. And the next question is from Rishi. I think you partly answered that, Vijay. The question is, what do you think is the solution to chicken egg problem from ages in EV infrastructure density? Is it EV production or adoption first, or should government take the first lead? That's the question literally I've read for you. So Vijay, you can answer it.
Certainly. So see, there is See, I think it goes back into a little higher level thinking of why the governments even exist in the first place, and why do we pay taxes to the government. So one of the important function of any government is to make sure they come up with a good planning for its citizens and the country. And what I mean by good planning is how the country can benefit with a good regulation. And coming down to the regulation here, um, as the urbanization of India increases. So if you even look at the urbanization of India, we're still quite low. We were at, I think, 27 or 28 percentage points compared to a global urbanization of around 50 points. So there is still a lot of room for our urbanization. What it means is people will be moving into cities, and as they move into the cities, they'll be demanding more and more things, more and more bikes, more and more cars, and all these things. So as a country, we will see a much more demand in vehicles. So how does a government make sure we don't put polluting vehicles on the roads, more pollution, more foreign oil, and all these things, is through regulation. So chicken or an egg, I don't think it's a really this thing. It has to be done, and it has to be led by the government. There is no other thing. The industry will kick in. Industry will come and go in a fast way, but a regulation has to happen in order to facilitate these things. Because right now, for a normal person, there is no benefit of going to an EV, and it's expensive, it's difficult. So that's where the regulation has to come in play.
Got it. The next question is to Lalit. Lalit, the question is from Rishi again. He says he's asking you, what are the thoughts on BaaS, which is called Battery as a Service? Will it be successful in Indian conditions? I think he's referring to swappable batteries or infrastructure about it. Can you answer?
So I think for two-wheeler segment, this can be a game changer, because right now when we say like we have to charge the battery, and battery charging takes more than 3 hours to 5 hours. Then the swappable battery is an option wherein you have the grids available, and the petrol pumps, you have the infrastructure available in which we can swap and swap out. And this is very well working for the company Go Garo, and they are doing really good in this.
Okay. And the last question from the audience I wanted to take. Okay, there's one more question to look. Okay. The last question is, Rajveer is asking you, how do you advance the tipping point that will lead to mass adoption? You did share some thoughts on it. How do you get the mass adoption? But are there any indicators? I think Lalit and Vijay, both of you can share one or two thoughts about it. Like, are there any indicators which will tell us that this is the tipping point, or this is a good point for mass adoption? Or are there any indicators? That's the question. Might be on the infrastructure side, or if I can say adoption of number of vehicles. What are the parameters you as an individual would like to see?
So from a let's say from an end customer standpoint, let's say you're in a market of buying a car and about 10 lakh rupee range. Let's put it in that way. So at a 10 lakh rupee range, you have come down to certain features. Say you said, okay, I'm going to buy this SUV kind of looking car because I'm a tall guy or whatever, I need more space. And then I need an automatic car because I drive in the city most of the time. And then you're also started thinking about whether I would buy a diesel or a petrol car. And the reason for diesel or petrol, I think for many people depends on how much you travel. I mean, do I travel a lot of kilometers, and I'll go diesel. If not, I'll stick to petrol. If the petrol, diesel, and the third option can be an electric, and I don't have to compromise on anything else at the same 10 lakh rupee range, I think that would be a tipping point. Meaning that an electric vehicle is in the same league. It can offer all the creature comforts as the traditional IC engine variants. It can give me the same range. For example, if I, again using the analogy, like I have to go from Hyderabad to Bangalore or from NCR to Agra or someplace, I don't have to think and plan ahead. So if those questions are answered, I think that is the tipping point, meaning I can safely go buy an electric vehicle without putting a lot of thought to it. I think that would be a tipping point.
Lalit, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Vijay mentioned very well. Like, so what you are getting today, if you have any plus to it, then it's going to be adopted. Otherwise, uh, it's not going to be there. So like the Tesla, like in US, you have the free charging spaces, free charging. So wherever you drive through, you have in the most of the hotels you have the free charging, which is allocated to you. You have a free parking space. So you have to find a problem like with the currents existing, and then you have to plan a solution for that. So similarly, what happened to I mentioned for the CNG. So this is we don't see any CNG stations more, and nobody is buying the CNG vehicles more because it was only for the cost, but the pain that we are getting from it, it is much more than that. So it should maybe once the autonomous is there and you are just sitting back and relaxing and you can just enjoy, you can save your time while not driving. That could be the another advantage, but we don't see this coming in next 5 years or something.
Understood. Understood.
Abhinav, we have a couple of raised hands, so I can allow them to speakers.
Sure, Shankar. You can do that on my behalf.
Mansa, you can go ahead with your question. You can unmute yourself and throw your questions to the speakers.
Hi, sir. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, sir. How can we get incubation for battery developments at Hyderabad?
Okay, I think he's asking you if he wants to set up a startup in battery development and want to incubate, what would be the right way? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Srikanth.
Okay.
And I think THub can be a good resource to direct you to the right people who are working in the battery development technologies and those things. The battery development itself is quite a vast area, and then it has to have some deep pockets, meaning to setting up a good battery manufacturing capabilities. It's quite pricey, but I think THub can be your first step to understand who are the players in the battery technologies and can be able to get you a potential connect.
Thank you. I like the answer. Okay. We just have 1 minute. I think we'll quickly go to the most interesting segment. Is the rapid fire question. Okay. I have three questions for both of you. I'll go one by one. I'll start with Lalit. Easy questions first, and then go for a difficult question. I'm making sure that they're not politically any conflicting to you. I'll make it easy. Okay. First, Lalit. I know that Yamaha is into a lot of things. Like, so what is your favorite musical instrument from Yamaha?
I don't play in musical instruments.
At least to gift someone. At least if you want to gift someone, what is that? Or Vijay, of course. Okay.
Piano.
What
right?
do you want to?
Piano.
Piano, yeah. Yamaha, they have a wide range of pianos available. So, and the costliest ones also.
Okay, Vijay. Now question to you. Okay, think that tomorrow THub has transferred you $100 million. And which are the 2 stocks you want to invest in from automotive industry?
two stocks which I want to invest in automobile industry. So I would definitely let's say get into the
now the fund manager brain is working for you.
When there is so much going in the brain, I'm trying to think what's the last one I thought was very profitable. See, there are some new, let's say, for example, there are some new companies that have come up in the last few years, especially in this software application layer development and those things, which are very useful in autonomous cars and or autonomous vehicle systems. So
no, rapid fire question. Only tell two names. Okay. Names of the companies.
So I mean, I would definitely. I mean, Tesla is up there, so I would buy Tesla. And then maybe another EV company from China coming out from China.
China. Okay. My next question is to Lalit now. Lalit, consider that the Yamaha has the Harley Davidson of EV bikes. I know you might be working on it. If you own one, where will your road trip start and end? Which is the where do you start and where do you end that road trip? Your choice of place.
So I think I will drive from here to Goa. I have never been there.
When you say here, where are you from? Delhi, right?
Delhi.
Okay, Delhi to Goa. Very nice. Okay. Next question is to Vijay. Vijay, if I ask you to gift a car to Elon Musk other than Tesla, what would be your choice of car?
I will give him a General Motors truck, a GM big truck.
Okay, because he
completely opposite to the guy, right? So something that.
Yeah, I think GM has also already, because of that Cybertruck stand there.
Yeah, GM they are into EV.
They are into EV.
Yeah.
Okay, now last question to you, Lalit. You know that, right? Like Elon Musk has sent Roadster to the space using SpaceX. If I'll ask you, what would be that bike of your choice you want to send to space next?
So R1, of course.
R1. No. Okay. Yamaha R1. Okay, chalo. Last question to Vijay. Vijay, if you want to co-found a company next 5 years, which company or in which space that company would be? Just a domain. If you want to co-found.
I mean, see, with having been an automotive guy, I'll put it in automotive industry itself.
In
automotive, like you want to, or else you want to buy a mine in Bolivia. What would you?
What? I'm sorry. What did you say?
I said, would you like to buy a mine in Bolivia? That would be a better investment than it is.
That might be a good thing. Yeah, buy a lithium ore company. Whoever is extracting lithium ores.
Okay. With that, we formally conclude this session. Hope both of you enjoyed speaking with me, and I hope like all attendees were intact till the last moment. That means it was fantastic, and I'll make sure that if I get time, I'll co-author a white paper with you based on the insights what I have got now. So it would be a great one. Thank you, Vijay. Thank you, Lalit. Over to you, Shankar.
Okay,
thank you, Abhinav.
Yeah, thank you, Abhinav, for wonderfully moderating the session as usual. Thank you so very much, Lalit and Vijay, for such an insightful session. I'm sure our attendees had a great 1 hour from 3 to 4. Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to have you both for the session today. Thank you so very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Shankar.
Thank you for the participants.
Thank you, Vijay.
Thank you.
And
to all the attendees, please do share your feedback. It will appear as soon as the session ends. It will appear in your screen. Your feedback definitely matters to us. Please do share. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.